and become like, shrink those groups, get those Robin Hoods, which are fun. Your first couple Robin Hoods, I always say, are fun. After that, they're just
They
expensive. But it's one of those things like shrink them groups, get to be a really good shooter, and then go do shoots like Travis. Because I promise you, it will definitely help you in the field as a hunter, no doubt.
And I guess something I wanted to touch on when we discussed doing this was like 3D shoots, like for archery. If you don't do 3D shoots, like everyone, like they talk about it as like a tournament. It's not so much a tournament. Mm-hmm. Everybody goes out there and has fun. And some guys are out there to win it or whatever. But like if you're a hunter, you need to go out and just at least do one, because it really teaches you. Your first one, it feels like there's pressure and like you're mm-hmm. But by the time you get through the first couple of shots, you're starting to realize, oh, these are cool.
It's just
like
fun.
Yeah, everything spread out and all that. So it's really cool.
It's funny he says that too, because my dad, when I first started doing archery shoots was in 2006, so a while back, and my dad, he couldn't come with me because he had just got shoulder surgery, so he couldn't shoot a bow. He would come, but he would just walk the course with me. And then when I started doing shoots again, just recently, I would try to get him to come with me, and he doesn't shoot as good as he used to. He's older, his arms and shoulders aren't as good a shape. So he was like nervous to go because he thought it was like this big competitive thing, and he felt like he had to compete with people he wasn't going to do. I was like, It's not a competition. I mean, it is a competition, I guess. You're keeping score. If you don't want, you don't even have to keep score. It's just about having fun, becoming a better shooter, and that's what I told him. He did finally come out, and now he goes every time I go. Like, he loved it, realized it was not that competitive. For me, like, I am competitive, so like I'll go, and I of course want to like shoot really well, but like I don't even stay for awards. You know, like I don't care for a pin or whatever, and if someone texts me and says I got in the top 3 or whatever, like that's cool, but it's not about the competition. It's about getting the practice in. And being with your buddies.
Absolutely. I'll never forget the first time you rolled up. Like the first time I met him after I saw his pictures, like just rolling out with your dad and 3 other dudes, and you guys were just like didn't have a care in the world. You were just there to hang out, and like that's how everyone should go. Like
that's right.
It's not a tournament. It's there for us to get better at what we do. Especially in the long run, make ethical shots on hunts.
Ethics is so key. I mean, if you guys have followed me for a while on Instagram or YouTube, you already know, like, I'm like real critical of extra long shots. It's just something I'm not a fan of. And oftentimes the guys making these shots are like guys that just started hunting and don't shoot that good, to be honest. Like I said, out of whatever the 50 big game animals I've shot with a bow-ish, only 3, I was telling Travis, 3 have been over 60 yards. I've only used my slide, and I only used a slider once. Other times it was just like, one was 64, one was 66, one was 76. And I would say most of my shots have probably been under 35 yards. A majority, and then I have the couple that are like 40s and maybe a couple 50s, but like most of them are close. And what I always say is like, you want to become a better shooter, you want to do these shoots, practice more, become a better shooter, but also like become a better either sitter and wait for stuff to come to you, or become a better stalker. Like that's what I always, like learn to cut the distance. You know what I mean? Because to me, archery is like a very personal experience with the animal. So like, I think it is about getting close. Just because you can shoot 120 yards at a target doesn't mean that's not what archery is about, at least to me.
No.
I want to get within that personal space.
Yeah.
Like my heart was pumping when I was coming in on this guy. He's bedded down, no clue I'm there, and I started at like 150, and now, it's 90 and 70 and 60 and 40, 30. It's pretty cool when they have no clue you're there. And like you're realizing like I'm about to outsmart this animal that's made it his whole life surviving. Like that's what it's about to me.
Yeah,
it's not hucking these long shots and having deer with arrows in them like running around.
That's a tough. I have a picture of that on my phone. It's brutal.
It sucks for the deer too. Not only does it, like Travis said, like create a bad image for archers and hunters, but archers specifically. That's a living thing. with a friggin' arrow in it. You know, like that's not cool. You know, I take that super seriously. Like, I want to put them down quick. You know, I mean, that's always my goal is to hit them quick. And like I said, with this buck who I hit good, if you can, always hit them again. I mean, if they stop, I learned that from Jim Burnworth. One of the few shows I will watch is Western Extreme on Outdoor Channel. You guys check it out if you do not watch it. Guy's an excellent hunter, phenomenal archer, and one that he always says the same thing. If you can, shoot them again. You know. Mm-hmm. Regardless, you could hit them perfect right in the 10 ring, but like if they give you the chance, you never know. Animals are strong, man. Like stuff can happen.
Yeah, there's no room for them to lay down and cry and go, "Mommy, help!"
No, exactly, because you're gonna have a big 200-pound cat on you real quick. So, that's it.
Burnsworth actually. So, I'll say that like as for long shots, I practice all the time from 60 out to 120 just to make myself a better shot under 60. Like when you're shooting those long distances and then you come in and you shoot at 30 or 40 yards, I mean you're knocking the crap out of your arrows if you're shooting at the same thing every time.
Of course.
But watching Burnsworth, like also like for any of you guys who think you're gonna take a long shot or whatever, Burnsworth really laid it down pretty good. When I watched him make a 108-yard shot on an axis deer. And he drew back and he let it go and he drilled it. Like the deer didn't go far. It was a very humane shot. And when he started talking about the shot, like he was saying how when he draws back at a distance that far, he's not sure if he's going to take the shot or not.
Exactly.
He gets back and hits his anchor and everything feels right and his pin is set good and everything feels good. Then he'll release a shot. Totally. But he doesn't know that when he draws back. And that's a good thing.
Exactly.
Because, I mean, especially like, there are a lot of guys out there who are just going to take long shots no matter what. So if you can't walk away from that, at least think about that.
Like, yeah, totally. I think a lot of it's like I think a lot of the thing is like an ego thing a little bit. I think, like I said, a lot of people that take these long shots with bows, a lot of them are newer hunters and have maybe never been successful or very few times. Mm-hmm. So I think for them, they just want to be able to say they were successful, so they'll like take a reckless chance just to like say they were able to do it, you know, which is like, again, I don't think is right, but you know, that's why we're here spreading the message, doing the shoots, like trying to pitch a different angle, and if people take it, cool. If not, at least like the word's out there. And yeah, that's it. But one other thing I heard to kind of close out these, like the distance shooting stuff is, I believe it was Michael Waddell who said this. And Michael Waddell is like, as a little kid, when I was like 5 years old, my parents would buy me Monster Bucks and Monster Bulls VHS tapes. And I would watch these. And Michael Waddell, ever since I was a little kid, was my favorite hunter, always. Like, number one, the guy's a phenomenal shooter. Always would put the shot on the money. But, like, he's just so cool and was, like, kind of, like, the coolest guy. So I always liked him. And he did a video, I don't know if it was on Bone Collector or what. Like I said, I don't watch too much hunting. But he made, like, a 80-yard shot on a caribou or something. And he talked about it, which I appreciate. He said that he looks at it the same way. Like, it's a big ethics thing to shoot for. What he said was the rule of thumb that I think he said he learned from Chuck Adams, who I think is the best archery hunter of all time, or probably the best archer of all time. Chuck says that for something to be in your effective range, you have to be able to hit a paper plate 10 out of 10 times at that distance to make that shot ethically. So, like, if that's 20 yards for you, then that's your max. Yeah. You know, if that's 50 yards for you, then that's your max. Or if it's 100 yards for you, then that's your max. Like Jim Burnworth, like who we mentioned, he can ethically make that shot if the conditions are correct. Most people can't, but he's a far better archer than most people, you know? He can put those arrows in the paper plate. So I think that's a good rule of thumb. And I even tweak it a little for people. I'm not Chuck Adams, obviously, but I say, like, if you can do it 9 out of 10 times, like, you know, some crazy things can happen when you're shooting. You might just mess up an arrow. But if you can do it 9 of 10 times, I call that, like, in your effective range. But in reality, most people can't do that past, like, 40 yards. No. At the most, you know. And this is from, like, we're Western hunters. Back east, guys only shoot like 10 to 20 yards most of the time.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like, even for guys who do shoot further, still most people can't do it past 40, I bet.
Yeah. That's one thing, like, with having my page, I follow a lot of people, I get to see their stories, and I see a lot of guys, like, down at the range, posting their shots, you know, like, they're super stoked on, like, 80 and 90 yards, and, like it's funny, because I pick up on stuff pretty good. And you'll see, like, they'll have, like, you'll see the one round where, like, they're, like, super stoked on their 90-yard shot, and there's, like, 3 arrows within 5 inches at 90. Well, the last round you shot 7 arrows, and all of a sudden 4 of them aren't there. So,
yeah,
starting to realize, like, you're pulling arrows before you take that picture, guys. Like, you know, like,
yeah,
you know,
it's true, man.
it's but the one thing I will say, like, on that note, like, having this page and, like, getting to see everybody's stories, like, when you guys are hunting,
stuff,
like, I feel like I'm hunting with you
That's
guys,
awesome.
like I get to see hunting all the time when season's open,
And from local guys too, which is cool. You know,
so
it's
cool.
just, it's something different when it's like it's local stuff. You know, and recently, like, you posted some stuff that was like local people, but not local stuff, and I think that's cool too. I like to just see what like local people are doing. I think that's dope.
Yeah, I kind of put out a feeler for that, and I did get a couple of comments and messages back to me, like, talking about how they really like the page, how it's just San Diego deer, but it's like, I want the page to be about San Diego deer and San Diego hunters. So
Well, the problem is too, like, unfortunately, this is just the case, is like hunting season is short.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, if you're only posting San Diego deer specifically, and not out-of-state deer where you can extend the season 2 months on either side, like a month or 2 on each side, like, now your content window is very short. Because if you post out-of-state, now, like, your window's growing a little bit.
Yeah.
So, like, rather than being able to post 3 months, now you can post, like, 6.
Yeah.
You know, which is, like, a big difference. And then post some, like, you know, shoots or whatever. But I think that's one reason you kind of have to, really. It's just to have more stuff to post.
And it's cool because, like, I mean, it's that pat on the back, man. Like, it's super stoked when you can stick your chest out and say, like, look what I got. And like, you know, like, Chris Vincent, I'm pretty sure you know
that
him.
guy, yeah.
That guy shot a toad in Colorado this year.
Mm-hmm.
Big old deer. And I haven't hit him up yet, but I kind of want to throw that on the page. But like, as the season's, like, you know, the filler for in between San Diego season, like, I want to, like,
Space
get out
out.
there and space them out.
Yeah.
And then also do some helpful hints and everything, like, you know, about properly tagging your deer, and like the one I put up about like how you have to keep the skull cap till 30 days after the season. Like, a lot of people don't know that, but there are people in San Diego who've lost their deer because of that. So I like the content I put up, I want it all to be helpful, and then
And
I also
educational too.
Yeah.
And educational.
But then I also want it to go, like, you know, like, say, hey, Chris, like, here's your deer, dude. Like, everybody give this guy an attaboy because this guy handled it. You know.
And shout out to Chris too. Chris is one of my good friends. He went to Arizona with me last year. It was the first time we had, like, hung out a lot, and I don't invite people hunting really, but Chris came out with us and got a javelina. I think it was his first one. And he went out this year on his own. One thing I really respect about Chris is I would have invited him back because I had a great time with him, but he was bringing 2 new guys, and he said, I don't want to, like, bring more people to your thing, so I'm just going to, like, try a new area. And he went on his own and got one, which is, like, so cool. A lot of people wouldn't do that. He didn't go anywhere near where we had took him, which I think is cool. You know, it's public land, you can, but I thought it was cool that he had that respect and didn't. And, you know, Chris got 2 local bucks this year, which is, like, how good is that, you know?
That's so cool.
Good stuff. So on Instagram, I put out, like, a couple little question stickers. So we're going to go over some of those. Like I said, if you don't follow me or Travis, be sure to follow us, San Diego Muleys, at James Visser. Shoot us both a follow. So let's go ahead and hit a couple of these questions. The first one is hunting abroad for beginners, how to prepare physically and mentally for pack hunting. So on that one, I've never hunted out of the country. Honestly, I don't really have much of a desire to, except for maybe, like, Canada. Like, for some reason, African hunting, like, really doesn't appeal to me that much. I love North American animals. So I would go to Canada, but I have hunted out of state, as I know Travis has as well. So for me, the main thing is, like, packing lists really help. Like every hunt I have, whether it's javelina or elk or deer or turkeys or whatever, I have like a separate list for packing. I print them out and I just go through the checklist, and it changes throughout the years,
Did you post yours on your story?
I think I did. Yeah, I posted on my story.
You should post it to your page so people can see it, because I have the same thing.
Yeah.
And I have it marked out for years to get me out through like 2025. So I'm gonna have to make a new one in like 7 years or 6 years. But like I do X's as I put it in I just put everything in a pile in the living room.
Yep.
And then.
Exactly.
But that list that you put up, I actually screenshot it.
Yeah.
And then I compared it to my list, and I was like, yeah, this guy's pretty close.
Yeah, yeah. And like I said, it does change throughout the years as technology changes and things change. Like the list changes, but it's something that's very good. So I will post that at some point. That really helps. As far as preparation, to me, the biggest thing, especially if you're going to go bow hunting, is just practice a lot. What I'll do, too, before hunts, I'll go out and just practice glassing. Glassing has always been my bread and butter for whatever reason. I'm like a pretty solid glasser. So I'll go out ahead of time and just practice and make sure I'm feeling solid with my I have a 7-power setup and I have a 25-power setup. So I'll practice with both, make sure I feel good. And, if I'm confident and I can see stuff, then we'll go out there and I know we'll be okay. But, yeah, lists and then just practice overall hunting, shooting, maybe stalking, glassing, all that stuff. Whatever you can do to get more prepared is the best, really.
Something you can do to practice stalking is, especially if you're a local hunter, like go out and like just start glassing up some deer. And if you see a couple of does or whatever, like, just throw down a little stalk on the does, without a bow or anything. Like just work on that. Like if you can get close to a doe, like that's not a bad thing.
No, and I mean, like just understanding animals helps you a ton as a hunter. So like just by stalking does and watching how they react and how different things work and different wind currents, all that stuff, you're going to learn more about the animal, which is going to help you in future stalks. So the next one, since San Diego has a big population, what can we do to put bow hunting in a better public view? I think we touched on that earlier. Basically, like knock off the long reckless shots, stop putting arrows in deer or turkeys that don't put them down. Don't take violent pictures. Take good, clean photos. Just the things you can do to make hunting look less violent, the better.
I had a couple at my house a couple of weeks ago, and they'd never eaten elk before or deer. Like I don't think they knew they were coming over to have elk. And after talking to them a little bit and explaining to them the difference between an elk's life, where they're out like living their life in like beautiful, mountain settings and all that, and like the way an elk is raised as compared to like farm raised cattle and all that, like it just is better to I just totally blew that. You'll have to edit
in
that
other
one out.
words, it's better to take an animal that had a fair chance at life. They're out there, they're living their best life in the mountains. They're chased by predators every single day, but they're living free range. Whereas like being a hunter who's hunted various states and California, there's a ton of free range cattle as well. I'm aware of that, but a lot of cattle that you get beef from did not live the best lives. So at least this animal had a chance, and also they're not pumped full of hormones or steroids or whatever. Who knows what they're feeding them? An elk or a deer, they're out eating grass or oak or acorn.
That's what meat is supposed to taste like.
That's what it's all about. So to me, just from a health standpoint, I think hunting's really cool as well, and I think that's another way to pitch it to a broader audience, to say, look, I don't even do it for sport, I do it for healthy meat. That's one way you could kind of verb it. Let's see here. Can we get a California bow hunters pint night?
No.
In SoCal. Yeah. So that I hadn't thought about, but when I saw that question, I was like, hey, that might not be a bad idea to once a month pick a different brewery or restaurant and just invite all the bow hunters that follow Travis's page or mine and just get together and you know, talk trash and talk hunting, I think that actually might be kind of fun. So
I absolutely agree.
yeah,
I think like the info, you know, like you learn so much from other hunters.
totally.
Right? Especially like if you're someone like who likes to hunt like a solo hunter kind of thing, where you know show up to one of these things, you start talking to people, and like it can just broaden your horizons.
Totally, yeah. So I think that's something that you know, maybe Travis and I'll talk about and maybe put something together in a month or two. Who knows? But definitely stay tuned for that potentially happening. Next up, this one is a question probably more specifically to me. Favorite Four Loko. For me, I would say the sour apple Four Loko, which is 14%. It's one of the big dogs, so that one is pretty good. Just make sure you don't have to drive anywhere and you don't have an early morning before you go ahead and pop one of those puppies. But do you have a favorite Four Loko or no?
I don't even know what a Four Loko is, but I'm picking up what you're laying down. Like, I'm gonna just sit with my Pacifico.
Yeah, he's a Pacific. Yeah. So, anyways, next up, spot and stock or blind, which yields the most bucks? So for that one to me really depends on where you're at.
Absolutely.
I think sitting always is good, to be honest with you. I think it's something that a lot of people don't do nearly enough. I think you sit almost anywhere. Eventually you'll have something come by. So I always think sitting a blind or a tree stand is a good way to go, especially if it's in a good area. It's not my favorite style of hunting. I find it boring, but it is effective. And I always say I'll do what it takes to be successful. So it works very well. My favorite style of hunting is spot and stalk, but there's some areas that doesn't work. You know, if there's tall pine trees and you can't see more than 100 yards, good luck glassing up a buck. You know, it's not going to work. So you kind of got to take it case by case and go about it that way. But in SoCal, almost all of my bucks I've shot out of a blind. Almost all of them. So
to add to that, like cameras come in so handy,
huge.
Because if you know what kind of bucks are in the area, then you know like where you're gonna sit. Like with spot and stock, you're you know you can glass an area 2 miles, and then all of a sudden you see nothing, so move. Yeah, and then exactly. Whereas if you know that there's a buck in the area, like you know like you can glass it. But if it's heavily wooded, like where I hunt in Utah, a lot of times it's heavily wooded and there's not even like binoculars aren't even on your chest.
No,
like your longest shot's going to be 40 yards.
Yep.
But you're like when it happens, it's like that.
It's quick, yeah. So I mean, to me, it's like it's really pretty case to case. In SoCal, I would say sit, use cameras. Out of state, if it's more open. Like I said, spot and stalk has always been my passion. I really take a lot of pride in being a good stalker, but when you're in state, you know, and I know a lot of the people watching this are from SoCal, I really do think sitting is the best. Last but not least, are deer here considered muleys or something else? So over the years, like my dad and I have heard so many people, like we've heard people say, oh no, those are blacktails. But like if you look into it, like they are a mule deer. They're a subspecies of a mule deer. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I've heard people call them coastal mule deer, southern mule deer. There's burrow deer a little bit further out, like more D19. So like there's kind of different versions. So I think we kind of have a hybrid of like all those. Like, yeah. But they're definitely mule deer. They're just like a subspecies of a mule deer.
Yeah, I've heard. I mean, even naming my page, I was saying that like, so many people were saying like it's a south or the southern Pacific blacktail, and even on something where I was like a forum where I was posting some stuff, like they were saying like it looks more like a blacktail, but it is like the southwestern or the southern California mule deer.
Yeah,
it is a mule deer, so that's why I went with the name Muley for my page. Like,
exactly. I mean, they are mule deer. There's no doubt. It's not even like a debatable thing. There are a lot of blacktail in California, but those are typically further north. Yep. We do have mule deer, but they're a subspecies that are smaller. And to me, I kind of look at it like a Coues deer is a whitetail deer, but it's a subspecies that's a lot smaller. I almost think like we have mule deer, but they're like a subspecies that's a lot smaller. So like to me, we should have our own scoring scale, because that buck right there, like 100% should be Pope and Young, Boone and Crockett, high up there, you know. Or a lot of like the nice local bucks that he posts on his page should for sure be in a scoring book, but they're not anywhere close because they're scored as a Rocky Mountain mule deer. They just don't come anywhere close to the same size.
No.
You know, so it's like, I think to me it's like a Coues deer, but a mule deer version. So I don't know. It's like a Coues mule deer in SoCal. It's like kind of how I look at it. They're a much smaller version. It's just how it is, you know.
Yeah.
But it's certainly a subspecies. So it is at the end of the day a mule deer.
I gotta say they are probably more skittish than most of the deer. They're very resemblant of a Coues deer. The way that they're so quick to up and jump, like on any scale, but at the same time, like that's where you get a lot of San Diego hunters or a lot of San Diego people, I won't say hunters, San Diego people who go out and buy a bow and they're all gung-ho about hunting, and then get out there their first year hunting, they don't see but maybe one or two does, and then they're out. They want to sell their bow, and it's like,
it's hard. I mean, it's hard. Hunting is. Like, I always try to tell new people this. They're like, oh, I know I'm going to be successful. I know how I am. Like, I'm a hard worker. I go, that's great, but you're in for a rude awakening. Like, hunting is hard, you know.
The mental beating.
Yeah, people just don't understand it. I mean, it's hard. Like, hunting is extremely difficult. And a lot of early mornings, late nights, like, it's just a nonstop effort if you want to be successful. Like, especially on a mature animal. Like, it's people don't know how hard it is until you're out there doing it. It's just like you cannot know what it's like until you're out there doing it. And I mean that's basically it. So I think one more thing I wanted to talk about real quick before we wrap this up is we were talking earlier about long shots, and one thing we didn't touch on was animals' reactions. So like an animal can jump the string.
The string jump.
And I always preach to archers, aim lower third always. Always aim in the lower third. So like if I'm aiming at this deer, I'm aiming down here. You know, because even if I hit him, that's going to smoke him, but more than likely he's going to drop. I'm going to hit him right here. But if I'm aiming here, I'm hitting him up here. It's just backstrap. He's going to be fine. So I always preach aim in lower third, and that brings me to a story I wanted to tell Travis that would be great to put on film. One time I'm in New Mexico. It was actually the same day I shot this buck, like 10 minutes prior. And I stalk in, I'm hunting solo, I stalk in on this buck. There was like a group of bucks. I stalk in, and as I'm getting in there, I see this small 3x3. He was feeding right towards me. So he has no clue I'm there. So I'm like hunkered down with my bow. He comes 30 yards, is perfectly broadside. I draw back. He has no clue I'm there, not alert at all. I let the arrow go, and as soon as I let the arrow go, this buck literally like dropped to his stomach. Like he hit his chest on the ground, and my arrow went right over, like way over top of him because he just was gone. Like whatever that is, a deer drops their legs, hits their chest, that's like a 2-foot drop. Mm-hmm. So in third, he was not alert, and it was a 30-yard shot. He heard my bow, and by the time my arrow got there, he was 2 feet below it. And then it was wild. It taught me like how fast they can move, how smart they are. As that happened, this buck hopped up, went out, stood at 66. That was one of the ones I shot at a little bit more of a poke. And I put that shot on the money. But my first shot was on the money. It was just the buck was gone by the time my arrow was there. You know, it's crazy.
They're a resilient animal.
It's
they
crazy.
They really are. And like you had said in an earlier video this week, like they spend their whole life like trying to deter themselves from getting eaten by a mountain lion or a coyote or a bear or whatever.
Yeah.
Like they're always on the go, and to think that they're gonna make it easy for somebody like us who's got a stick and a string, like we're gonna throw a sliver at them from however many yards. Like.
And we're not nearly as good of a predator as a mountain lion is. No. Let's be honest. Like that's why we need a stick and string. If I had to strangle an animal, I'd probably have 1 or 2 big game animals under my lid. I do think I'd have a couple, but I wouldn't have that many. So like it's we're at a disadvantage. I promise you that. So you need to do everything you can. If you haven't watched it, go watch the video I did about how to stalk better. I think that would help a lot of people. And then that leads into animals being resilient, leads into our closing topic, I think, for this video. You were going to tell me about a poaching scenario that happened. I wasn't really aware of it, so why don't you go ahead and tell us what happened?
Yeah, it's pretty terrible. Like, it's to hear it brought to me the way it was by a certain individual, and then a week later, somebody blatantly talking about it in public about desert hunting. Like, the desert deer, like those deer, they live in a miserable atmosphere. Like, it is like, it's barren out there. The water, like we actually put water tanks out there for them to live on. And to hear that that guys are out there with razors and quads and even 4-wheel drive trucks, like chasing these deer down, and like either they chase them down and put a bullet in them, or chase them down and then put the dogs on them, and then the dogs get them, and then they go up and they shoot them. These deer are such an impressive animal, especially out in the desert, because they call them the white ghost for a reason. Like, they're so hard to find. But if you don't have it in you to put your best against their best and see if you have what it takes, then just don't do it.
That's immoral to me. I mean, to me, I don't even think it's like an ethics thing. I think that's like actually like you're a bad person. I really think that. I don't mean to like be judgmental, but I really I respect animals so much from being a hunter my whole life. Like, I respect animals, I think, way more than like even I've told people this, like people that are like animal lovers and like tree huggers and this and that. I think I respect animals a lot more than they do. Yeah. Like, I know animals well.
Absolutely.
I've been around them my whole life. So to hear stuff like that just like really, really bothers me. I think it's immoral, it's inhumane, and if those guys get caught, there are stiff legal penalties, and I think there should be. And that's why. I mean, like I said, I was telling Travis, I didn't start filming hunting stuff. I filmed content my whole life from when I was biking to now. But I never had filmed hunting really much until this year, and posted it at least. And like, to catch a poacher was like kind of cool. It was like so surprising. I didn't know anyone was out there. So it's very surprising to hear a bullet whiz past you and hit a deer. And, like, even though I didn't show his face, and I have a lot of footage that did, I just didn't post it. I feel like that video may like stop someone else from doing that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Which I think is important. And that's another cool part about just opening the discussion and saying, like, poaching does happen. But us ethical hunters, like, zero support for it. You know what I mean? Like, the negative. Like, we just, like... So I think it's good to put it out there, let people know it happens, and then, like, people will look for it, and then maybe when we see it, we can report it and get those guys in trouble.
And the other thing is, like, maybe these guys don't realize that they're popular. Like, I'm not the only one who knows. Like, I've had several people come at me and say, like, that, like, it's a discussion. Yeah. It's a popular discussion in my circle of friends, and my circle of friends is growing, especially since I started this page, where you're hearing about it, and it's just like, dude, that's pathetic. Like, if you get a big deer in the middle of the desert because you ran him down with a quad and you shot him with a rifle while he was pinned on your quad or whatever, like, you'll never know what I know or what I feel having accomplished a 200-inch deer on a public land hunt with a general season tag. Like, that is the greatest feeling in the world.
Exactly.
And you'll never know that. Like,
exactly.
And so if that's something that, like, you're desiring, you're not gonna find it that way.
And Travis is totally right. I mean, like, this buck, the Houdini buck, or any of my local bucks or my out-of-state bucks, like, all my out-of-state bucks were public land, over the counter, DIY. Like you said, like, that doesn't. If I were to get this buck using a machine to wear him out and shoot him, it's not the same. I outsmarted this dude who had lived his whole life and was a kingpin out there. You know what I mean? Like, that is special, and that's what hunting's about. And it was within personal range, like I talked about, 30 yards. So, like, this buck here really kind of represents a lot of what we talked about today. Being moral, getting close, not doing things the wrong way. And I mean, look, it's possible. Yes, it's hard, but that's why it's so rewarding when you get it done. You know.
Only took me 34 years to get a 200-inch buck.
Yep.
Jesus.
Yep. So, anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching. This has been a really good discussion. It's a long video, so I'm not sure if I'm gonna upload it in 2 chunks or 1, but or 4, whatever. Thank you guys so much for watching the video. We both really appreciate it. Definitely gonna have Travis again. We'll do more of these chats. Maybe even get Bruce from the bow shop on a chat would be fun. But
if you get a chance, if you have a deer or something you'd like me to post, like just hit me up, send it to me or whatever. Like, you know, like I said, every San Diego deer is a trophy. And as for the out of state thing, like I'm still just touching on that one a little bit. But if you like out of state, like I would prefer it to be more of a trophy buck or whatever. But if you got to see a good San Diego or any San Diego deer for that matter, like you know, just send it my way. Let me know.
Take a good clean photo. His Instagram is San Diego_mules. Mine is at James Visser. Look for his shoot. March 31st is the tentative date, but it sounds like that will happen. So be sure to meet us there. I'm going to be there. He'll be there. Bruce will be there. And come have some fun. Meet a bunch of us. And yeah, it'll be a good time. So thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see you in the next video.